Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. I'm Rob.
I'm Randy.
And we have a special guest with us once again for this episode. We have Jill Mackey, black belt. I'm actually just going to let you give the whole gambit of things that you do. Met you at the BJJ Globetrotters camp in Arizona. Had a really good seminar with you about black belt mindset and kind of the mental health stuff with doing martial arts and like. But I'm not going to steal your thunder on that. I'll let you do your intro. So go ahead, Jill. Why don't you let our listeners know who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Jill Mackey. I've been a therapist for about 14 years. I'm a licensed professional counselor and licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor in New Jersey. I'm also a teacher at St. Elizabeth's. I teach intro to substance use counseling and co-occurring mental health and substance use. And I'm a black belt over here at Performance Jiu-Jitsu in Fair Lawn. And I got my black belt last year. I've been training about 14 years.
Nice. And that's that. Like I said, I'm glad you spoke all that. I couldn't remember all that, but because that's a lot and that's really awesome. So one thing I did want to talk about today too was, we talked a little bit about it at the camp and I thought it was really awesome. Kind of the mental health things that sometimes we neglect when we do martial arts or do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because, like you hit the nail on the head, because it is one of my least favorite phrases is Jiu-Jitsu is my therapy. Like, it doesn't solve everything. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But like, that's kind of what I wanted to ask about today.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that. And I was hoping that when people took the seminar or the workshop, that I'd be able to explain that right away, right? That the jiu-jitsu is my therapy is hyperbolic, right? Like, it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be a punny, like, that's not actually what it is, right? It's great. It's a somatic exercise for sure. But I hear people say it all the time, just about everything. Who needs therapy? I go to the gym. Who needs therapy? I go to jiu-jitsu. I'm like, you and most others, right? So jiu-jitsu is great for the bodily aspect, right? But in terms of like the anxiety, in terms of depression, self-worth, and, ADHD, any of the things that we need to work on, jiu-jitsu is a coping skill, right? It's not going to solve the overall brain chemistry problems that most of us struggle with.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about too, because, I'll be open. Like, I've seen therapists about stuff, and it's, as much as I love rolling on the ground like 4 to 5 times a week, and,
Right.
it's still like some days are, we're rough. So like, I'll be open about when my dad passed away. I remember like, I just need to get on the mats. I just need to get on the mats. And I remember I had my friend like sweep me from guard like it was nothing. And then he's like, "You good?" I'm like, "Nope. Like, this is not it today. I'm not doing well." But
Yes.
but yeah, he was like, let's just get out of here and, do something else. I was like, that's fair. So I mean, like, I kind of think of it in that aspect, because it was like,
Yes.
you hear it, like you said, it's hyperbolic. It's supposed to be, not a joke, but some people don't take it as a joke. So,
They mean it. They mean it seriously, right?
yeah,
Like, you hear people say it. I'm like, I'm saying it to be funny, right? And I love that you shared the example about your dad. I had a very similar experience when my mom passed and when my dog passed, and both people were like, "Jill, I never get you in that move. Are you all right?" And I'm like, as I'm crying on the mat, like, I'm fine. Like, look away. Yeah, very interesting.
So how do you feel about, and I've gone through therapy too. I'm not afraid to put that out there. I think it's been extremely beneficial for things that I've experienced, whether it be in my profession or my personal life. And jiu-jitsu definitely has its place in the process of kind of getting to a better spot. I mean, whether it serves as a distraction or, it kind of gives me a little bit of that I don't know if the proper term would be a dopamine hit, just because something that I enjoy gives me a little bit of positivity. But there are times when what you're dealing with is so heavy that it's just not the right avenue. So how do you kind of measure whether going to jiu-jitsu is the right thing to do for what you're dealing with, or maybe if you need to seek alternative measures?
So yeah, I'll speak for myself. So if I go to class and I don't want to tap because I'm in like a self-destructive mode where I'm like, I don't care if this person has me in a move, I'm going to try to roll out of it. It really shows me I'm not really in my body, right? Like, I'm in a place where I'm either trying to hurt myself or trying to punish them, right? If I'm getting like exceptionally frustrated or mad or frustrated in terms of like, let's go again from a different position. Like I'm not taking no for an answer, or none of my normal stuff is working, or I'm gassing out, or I'm feeling fatigued, or those sorts of things. That's more of like the mental sort of piece of it, I think, for me. But also too, when I'm dreading class, like I want to pick who I'm rolling with because I'm going to beat that person versus I'm going to lose to that person. If I know if I'm in a bad headspace, it's like everybody looks like a nail sort of a thing. So that's for me. Or if I'm not taking feedback or criticism or anything, if I can't even hear anything that anyone's saying, and I just kind of want to storm off the mat or, something like that.
Yeah, I can say from my experience, it's similar to that last part. If I get frustrated very easily, if my temper is short, then I know I'm probably not in the right place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, there's days where I don't want to go to the gym. I dread it, but then those end up being my best days. And sometimes it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
decipher which one is which. So if you run into that, so let's say I go to the gym and I'm feeling a little bit irritable, or I'm just not in a good headspace, but I'm like, maybe jujitsu will help me. So I go. Like I said, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But let's say I start picking up on the fact that I'm short-tempered with my training partners. I'm not being the type of training partner I need to be for my gym. How do you deal with that? Do you just walk off the mats? Do you tell somebody what's going on? How do you personally deal with that moment?
Yeah, so that's something Rob and I had talked about in the workshop too, in terms of mindfulness, right? Like if I'm not able to assess that, then I definitely shouldn't go. Number one, right? But if I'm able to assess myself midway through and say, oh, wow, I'm noticing I'm getting really frustrated or I'm getting really annoyed, right? I do some self-talk in that moment, right? I'm like, all right, Jill, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going to get hurt or you're going to hurt them, right? So it's important to assess that. But for me, I wouldn't leave in that situation. I would probably go over to the side and use the jujitsu community, right? Like just sit and talk with people. But my main training partners, my 3 or 4 main training partners, I have a code word that I use with them because I have PTSD. So I have a code word that I use with them and they're like, dinosaur. I'm like, yep. They just know that like I'm not in a good headspace. Or another sort of key indicator for me, if I'm on the bottom and I'm like closing my eyes or something like that, and I'm really trying to get out of a position, but I can't get out, I'm like, that means I'm feeling demoralized. So like if you're holding me in a position for like just like give me a little room. You don't have to let me get out, but just like a little room to work because dinosaur is coming, right? That's my code word where like I'm feeling agitated, I'm feeling annoyed, I'm feeling like I'm going to go cry in the car sort of a thing. And because I have the code word, I only have to use it like maybe 2 or 3 times a year because it's there, because I know it's there. I put those measures in place for myself. So maybe for people who don't have trauma, maybe they don't have to do that. And like I joked about in the workshop, maybe with guys, it's like that seems weird or corny or whatever. But for me, I know I have to have that in place. Otherwise, I don't really even feel safe because sometimes I can't communicate what I need in that moment. And Dinosaur communicates it already. It's like it's already been said, right? And they can kind of assess what's happening too.
No, it is. I talk about like everybody's different training experiences, stuff they handle, things they bring to the mat. Like, yeah, the majority of people I train with, comes from the veteran community or their active duty or, law enforcement. Been very blessed, like share the mat with all these like awesome people. But, sometimes you catch a day, like you talk about, like, something happens and it just hits. And like, I've seen it with a couple of guys too. And they're like, they get up and they're just like, I'm gonna step off the mat. I'm like, step off the mat, dude. Like, there's
Right.
nothing weird about it. And I mean the same thing. Like, we had women come in, like veterans as well, dealing with stuff, and like it's whatever comfort is. Like, I don't like to prescribe to the whole. We're gonna keep the gym at 90 degrees, and then we're just gonna roll for an hour and a half and like try to kill each other, and there are no water
Right.
breaks. Like,
Yeah. So yeah, swallow your spit.
yeah,
You're like,
like, dude, we have at least 4 or 5 heat strokes per class. We need to hit those No, this
yeah,
is supposed to be helpful. In a sense,
right,
is that helpful? Depends upon what you're looking for. But at the same
right.
time, like, if you're on the mat and you're training and you have to leave, like, I would like to hope that most people, especially black belts, especially instructors or people who've been around, can recognize, like, yeah, it's not like a weird or a corny thing. It's like a
Right.
person's limit to like what they want
Yes.
to deal with or can deal with at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, one psychological concept I want to introduce there is warm firmness versus reactive distance. That's a really big one for me. So let's just say you're in a relationship and you're frustrated with your partner, and your partner says something you don't like. Reactive distance would be like, "That's it, I'm out of here. Bye. I'm leaving." And you storm out. Versus warm firmness is, you know what? I need a second. I can feel that I'm really agitated. I'm going to go to a yoga class and I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about it afterwards, right? I'm doing the same thing. I'm still leaving, but I'm leaving in a warmly firm way versus a reactive distance way, right? I'm not going to storm off the mat. I'm going to be like, you know what? I think I need a minute. And if I can't say I need a minute, then I needed a minute like 5 minutes ago. Right. So it's not always what we do, it's how we do it. It's like the motive. Like, am I storming off the mat, hoping somebody follows me, hoping people are like, oh my God, are you okay? As opposed to advocating and asking for what I need, which again, depends how far down the scale you are.
So that's a really good one too. And I think, again, I'm gonna probably say from my experience a lot, just because I can only speak from my experience. But for me, that detachment piece is essential for
Mhm.
recognizing when I'm about to lose my temper, if I'm about to, have some type of emotional outburst or whatever it is. And this could be on the mats, could be at work, it could be, in jiu-jitsu or with my relationships, whatever. But detaching is the first thing, and I feel like that's the hardest thing for me. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that, is recognizing soon enough to take that step back. Or like for me, I literally have to pretty much like bite my bottom lip sometimes at work to not say
Mhm.
something that's going to get me in trouble because of
Right.
that, like you're just saying, that reaction, and it happens
Mhm.
so fast. So do you have any
Right.
advice for me or the listeners or Rob, to pick up on those things sooner so that you can be more effective at taking that step back?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So again, like you said, in your experience, from my experience, right, it's like the back of my ear start to get a little tingly. My face starts to feel flush, and then I start to think of like all these like really sarcastic, nasty things that I'm going to say, and I'm like, "Well, make my day. Let's go." Like prepare, and I'm like, man, if they say this, I'm like, wait a minute, right? It's like rehearsing, preparing in my brain what I'm going to do and how I'm going to react. Those situations. So it's the physical, it's the psychosomatic, but it's also the mental for me, right? Like, and then I get this like little like smirk on my face where I'm like, not going to tell me anything. I know better than everybody. And it's like then the way I'm like carrying myself too. So, right, the actor versus the reactor, right? So the second I notice the tips of my ears getting red or my face getting sort of flush, instead of saying what I want to say in a moment like that, right? Maybe I'll take that breath or I'll pause or I'll walk away or I'll say, I'm like, you're lucky I've got impulse control, right? So I'll say something like that instead of saying what I want to say, or like, man, I want to be such a jerk right now. And I'll say that's the meta communication, or like, I'm having a really hard time with feedback. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm really not receiving what you're saying at all. I'm feeling shame is another one, right? That whether I say to myself, or I say to somebody else, right? So Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus, the thing that upsets us, and our response is a space, right? And in that space is our ability to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So if we can take even like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and sometimes I'll do a double hand over hand. I'm like, shut up, Jill. Mm-mm. Don't say it. Because whatever you're going to say, whatever you're going to do, whatever look you're going to give somebody, that's going to age like food you left out of the fridge. It's not ever going to get better. In the moment, it's going to taste great. And I'm going to feel like, man, I really zinged that. And then later I'm going to be like, I'm going to apologize. I feel bad. So in terms of your question, in terms of what to do, right? Recognizing the sign, knowing what your signs are, number one, right? Recognizing that if you can even give yourself 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, you increase the likelihood, right? Your cortisol is going to go down, your adrenaline's going to go down. You're going to give yourself that space. And like you said, whether it's biting the lip or fingers in the hands, right? Like a little bit of, whatever it's the nails digging in, or even just taking a sip of water first, just a fake, like, even if you don't need to, like, just what can I do to just pause? And then hopefully your brain comes back online.
No, that's that one. I like the analogy of food out of the fridge because I've had like,
Yeah.
in
Yep.
lessons in relationships since, I don't know, high school, you know, if you have, like, I always say this, like, it's out in the universe, you can't take it back no matter how many times you
Yes.
apologize. So, like, if I
Yes.
was dating a girl at the time and I messed up something, she's like, oh, you're just a friggin' idiot. And I'm like, I'm now a friggin' idiot forever. Like that's,
Yes.
that
Yes.
is it. So like
Yeah.
the food aging thing is perfect because I'm a big advocate of the time temperature safety zone for food anyway. So that's a perfect
Yeah.
analogy. But something I did want to ask about again too is like, so kind of tying it back to martial arts in a sense with, journey from white belt to black belt. If I can get my timeline correct, like that's about as long as you were also being like a licensed therapist and counselor
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
have you found the methods and things that you're talking about helped your progression towards black belt? Like probably like maybe not so much like a cheat code, but it helped
Yeah.
get over a lot of, the initial frustrations. Like, I was a blue belt ready to quit because, jujitsu's stupid and it's tough and I should be beating everybody now because I'm
Yes.
just awesome blue belt that just got promoted last week. And then some white
Right.
belt who always had my number chokes me out again. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
that was a
hmm
week of just terrible
Yeah.
self-doubt. But like, have you found that what you're talking about and the things you help your people with
Right.
helped you towards your black belt?
Yes, absolutely. I was the person at white belt that's like, why did none of these moves work? Right. Like I learned them yesterday. My roommate at the time was probably like a blue belt or even like a four stripe white belt. And he introduced me to jujitsu. And I'm like, why don't any of these things work? And he's like, well, because A, I know them and I know them better than you do. And I was like, that was like, what else you got? Right. Like that didn't really sit well with me. And I too was at blue belt for 5.5 years. Right. It was always talking back, always having something to say. And that totally mirrored the person that I was at work. Right. Couldn't ever take feedback. It's like, gee, who I am here is who I am here. Right. And I got cooked at blue belt for 5.5 years, just like humbled. And then as I got my purple belt, right, it was right after I'd gotten my divorce. So it was like a season of transition, right? And just sort of learning what jujitsu really meant for me. And jujitsu was really like an awakening at purple belt too. I know people plateau at blue a lot of times. And I said to myself, I was like, all right, if I actually want to be good at this, right, like anything, I have to actually like go to class more than twice a week and just like hope that I get promoted and, piss and moan about it, right? So I started training with there's a morning class guy who I started training with. He's really great and he's a military guy and like very disciplined, and his training style matched my learning style very well, right? So for anybody who obviously we have our instructors and stuff like that, but never be afraid to find other training partners or other instructors or whatever you need, right, to give yourself that extra, that next level. So in terms of the progression of the belts and the progression in life, in terms of being a therapist, my willingness to take feedback, my willingness to take accountability, my willingness to own my side of the street, because I was so frustrated that I wasn't getting promoted. I was comparing myself to everybody else, right? Same thing in life, comparing myself to everybody else, right? To compare is to despair, constantly wondering, why are they getting? How come I'm not getting? Why did I grow up this way? How come they did? Right. And so it really, jujitsu was a crucible for life for me and was a real microcosm of my journey. Right. And then as I got to brown belt, right, and feeling like I deserved to be there, right? Very similar in terms of imposter syndrome, in terms of being a therapist, right? Like I know what I'm doing, right? Somebody's not just going to roll up on me someday and be like, you know what you're doing, do you? I'm going to be like, you're right, I don't. Right. Whereas at jujitsu, I don't feel like that anymore, where I felt like that as a therapist for so long, because I was really young when I became a therapist, like 23. Right. And people were like, aren't you a little young to be a therapist? Right. So like earning my stripes, literally earning my stripes, but also earning my place and taking myself seriously. Right. So I think that was sort of the journey for me. And then as I got to black belt, really feeling like when I got to black belt, people were like, are you nervous or do you feel like you deserve to be here? And I'm like, deserve to be here in a non-egoic way, right? Like, yes, the mat doesn't lie, right? I've put my time in. Same thing as therapy. It's like, I couldn't possibly be a therapist for 14 years and not know what I'm doing. I can't possibly be a black belt in jujitsu and gone to a billion classes and teach workshops and whatever, and not know what I'm doing. So the self-assurance, I think, was really the biggest piece too.
So yeah, like the imposter syndrome thing, like I totally understand because, Randy was there when I got promoted and, he was one of the black belts that was present for it. And I remember just asking, I was like, am I doing all right? Like I'm supposed to have this or something? And
Yeah.
like he explained, or, I'll let him kind of fill it in, but he basically just said, yeah, you're going to feel like that. And, Ben Moore, a good friend of mine, asked him the same thing. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're the adult in the room. And then you sometimes look for the adult in the room and you look down and you're like, shit, I'm the adult in the room because you got
Yes.
a stripe or two on your belt. Like, he's about to get a second degree. And he said he never felt really comfortable, at least
Yeah.
for him, in the beginning, just like so many other people. But I just find that interesting and like kind of getting your way too, because get promoted, like that was kind of a big thing for me. Like every time I got promoted, like the only time I was really just like, yeah, I'm this is mine was blue belt because I felt like I was, I was the baddest white belt on the face of the earth. I say that all the time because in my own mind, early 20s, just like I'm the toughest man out there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
allow me to explain what's going on in the UFC while we're watching. So like, like that level stuff. But the
I love
humbling,
that.
like, yeah, like
That's so funny.
the humbling, like you said, blue belt. I think blue belt, that might be the reason a lot of people quit. I feel because, I've heard blue belt's supposed to be the longest, and blue belt's supposed to be kind of the decision point. And we talk about the metrics, and blue belt is allegedly, I don't know if it's changed anymore just because of like how things have changed over time in BJJ, but blue belt used to be the biggest group, like
Mhm,
spread out over, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then, but like right after that, that's the drop off point because, purple,
mhm.
brown, black, like it's difficult afterwards. So I wonder if, do you think, tying it back to what you do you think we could possibly improve the blue belt quitting epidemic that we face as a community with, I don't know, maybe helping people understand the frustrations and like the grind. Like it's supposed to be over a decade until you get your black belt because you're supposed to
Right.
dedicate yourself to the art. But is there a
Mhm.
way to, maybe help these blue belts uh get over the blue belt blues, get over, some training frustrations and like or just be more mindful of it, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yes. Yeah. So am I allowed to swear on here? Can I say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Just figured I'd ask. So in the that's the therapist in me. I just want to make sure. People want to skip the fucking struggle. That's it. Like bottom line, point blank, period. And I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, you're looking for the easy way. There is not an easy way. It's like hard and harder. It's like bad cop and worse cop, right? And you got to lean in, man. Like it's not gonna be. You came into this therapy room, right? Complex trauma, severe alcoholism, and you're wanting me to be like, oh, just try this or just try that, right? And it's not going to be hard. This is going to be a slog. You're going to fight for your life, and I'm going to be here and I'm going to fight with you, and we're going to both put in the work here, right? And the same thing with like instructors at jujitsu and stuff like that. People want immediate gratification, and jujitsu is not immediate gratification. It's the furthest thing from, right? I told you it took me like 14 years to get my black belt, right? And to communicate that to people like this is going to be a 14-year journey, this is going to be a 10 to 14-year journey, and people like what, right? They want to be the savants, right? They want to get their black belt immediately, they want to be better than everybody, and it's like big fish small pond. So really a lot of it is communicating to people that like you're not going to be like the coolest kid in school, you're not going to be the big fish in the small pond all the time, right? And so one thing that I say to a lot of white belts that I roll with during open mat, I'm like, okay, so here I am rolling with you, and you're like, oh my God, she's beating me up, she's doing all these things. Spend your first part of open mat doing that, and then watch me roll with brown and black belts and see what happens, right? I'm doing well, but it's very challenging. And then maybe some of them are beating me up, right? It's like, look at the cycle of life. Right. I always tell them to look at the cycle of life because you're always going to be the hammer to somebody, and then you're always going to be the nail to somebody else. Right. And so we always joke, it's like I'll start off mat rolling with black belts. And then afterwards, I'm like, all right, I got to go beat up some white belts to feel better about myself. Like we had a kid that like that. And I was like, just know that we do that because we got beaten up. Right. And so we're trying not to like demoralize people. Right. But so I think in terms of your question, right, addressing the frustrations, let it like, are the frustrations in the room with us sort of a thing, like inviting them in, right? That these frustrations are normal, validating that everybody feels these, that you're going to have the blue belt blues, right? And I again, all my friends, we talk about it in terms of jujitsu burnout, jujitsu fatigue, right? Can't train the same all the time, can't always go full clip, got to take different classes, maybe shop around at different schools, right? Try different moves, figure out your game, right? I could go on about what I think would be helpful.
No, I literally just wrote down notes when Rob was asking you the question. I had the same thing written down about human nature, the tendency for people to want to just skip steps and
Mm-hmm.
get to their destination without the journey in between. And
Mm-hmm.
so I agree with you. I think a lot of it comes down to are there ways that instructors can set up the training environment to make it a little bit more conducive with people feeling better about their process? Yes, but there's still a process, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
erase that.
Mm-hmm.
There's still going to be struggle. And I actually wanted to kind of tie that back to a question I had that kind of correlates pretty well in terms of obviously jiu-jitsu itself isn't like a therapy that you'd prescribe to solve
Right.
people's life's problems. But at the same time, do you feel like it can be beneficial for resilience development because of the
Mm-hmm.
journey you're talking about, because of the fact that every day you're on the mats, you're facing challenges, you're going to have even micro moments of overcoming adversity, like literally second to second, position to position,
Mm-hmm.
which, I think if we it kind of all connects. If we get students thinking about those micro moments of success, of achievement, of overcoming, like, hey, I was able to reguard. I wasn't able to do that yesterday. You're not
Mm,
winning the role, but if you're able to get back to guard, that's a win. If you recognize
mhm.
those moments, that kind of inspires people. And I think that that in turn can help
Yeah.
develop some resilience for people to deal with life struggles. Because you talked about earlier the correlation between the journey to black belt and the journey as a therapist. So, how do you
Mhm.
feel about that?
Yeah, that's another great question. I have so many thoughts as usual, right? It's like typical Jill. So I think some of that is learning style, right? That there's a couple different things, right? Like some people need the pat on the back. Some people need the tough love. Some people need the silence, right? And if you give the person who needs the tough love the silence, they don't benefit. If you give the person who needs the pat the tough love, they get upset and it doesn't work for them, right? So figuring out what you need and communicating that, I think, to yourself and to your teacher and saying like, hey, this is what works for me. And obviously I know you have a different teaching style too. But yeah, I think there's so many thoughts that I have in terms of making different mistakes. Like when you're in a role, right? And I said this during the workshop too. It's like I stayed in it mentally the whole time, right? Like I was in it for 20 minutes and I didn't quit. And I didn't feel like I didn't deserve to be here. I didn't feel like, wow, this person's so much better than me. I didn't feel like, wow, this person's laughing at my jujitsu, right? Or like any of the mental gymnastics that we go through, right? Right. I stayed in it mentally. I was constantly attacking, right? There's been roles where I didn't submit the person and I was fighting for my life for the entire 20 minutes. And afterwards, like, yeah, good job, Mackey. That was great. Like you really, you really held out there. Like your defense is great. And I was like, great. That's great. Did I win the role? No. Did I submit them? No. But learning how to stay in the fight mentally, that's a huge thing for people. It's like stay. So again, just to relate it to what I do for a living, right? Sobriety, people get a year sober, 2 years sober, and all of a sudden no one's coming to the sobriety anniversaries anymore. Your friends and family aren't even remembering. They're not even checking in with you anymore. Are you good? You all right? Right. It's like they don't care. Life has moved on. If you're not going to get a ticker tape parade, it's not all about you anymore. Right. So doing the journey because the journey is what works for you, not because we need the praise and we call them stripe bunnies, right? It's like it's great to get the stripes, but you're doing the journey because jujitsu is what works for you. And so would I prescribe jujitsu in a situation? Absolutely yes. I think people don't have community and they don't have hobbies. I'm telling you, people come to my therapy office. I said this in the workshop as well. People come to my therapy office and they have no hobbies and no friends. And I say to them, I'm like, I'm sure therapy would be beneficial for you, but you also need to have hobbies and friends. And jujitsu meets the hobbies and the friends, right? It's a community. And I've yet to find many, maybe aside from like a CrossFit where we joke that like friends don't let friends train CrossFit, right? So edit that out. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but like you have to have some sort of community, some sort of place where you go and you can rest your head and chat and can connect. And just the one last piece I wanted to say about that too is the process for me is wanting to quit and then not quitting and then wanting to quit and then not quit, getting to that I'm going to quit process and back to the mindfulness. I say to myself all the time, I'm like, oh yeah, that's part of the process. Wanted to quit and then not quitting. That's where my brain goes. I'm at the part of the process where I want to quit. And then the next day, I won't want to quit anymore and getting to that precipice.
No, like the community thing is huge, and that's something and I remember you asking that question. It's like, who here has hobbies outside jujitsu? And like half of them just gave you the, oh shit,
Yes.
I don't. Like, yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's do something. Like I have to do something outside jujitsu, otherwise
Right.
I go crazy. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
I need to do something else. But
Yes.
the community thing I think is a huge thing as well, like you talked about, and I think that's kind of
Mhm.
overlooked. And I know one of the big things that I hear a lot of veterans talk about. I try to. I'll usually bring it back to like veterans since that seems to be the largest group of people, like I said, I roll with and train with, is that like once you get out, like I got out, I was like, I had my rank, I had all that stuff. I was like, this is my position. I was in charge of people. I get out and they're like, congrats, Rob. Go back to work. Like this, you're not in
Literally.
charge anymore. Like, so all those people that,
Yes.
like I spend years with working,
Yeah.
you know, all this stuff, then I have nothing. But thankfully, I already had jujitsu at that point. So like going back
Mhm.
in gave that community and it
Right.
gives it a community to people who even just start. So I mean, like the amount
Mhm.
of what I do like about like one of the gyms I do roll at is like the amount of brand new like white belt men recently retired from the military and like doing judo or whatever. Like it's there, and it's awesome to watch. And it's awesome to experience because they
Mhm.
get that community. I mean, especially like we move every 3 to 4 years, or I used to, at least, thank God. Knock on wood. I want my job still. I need to stay here. All my stuff's here. But like I show up somewhere and I have a gym And then, I guess we can even talk about like the levels of community at certain gyms, like either good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But usually I have a group of people now I can fall in with and know
Yeah.
and hang out with and talk with. And it's like I wish more people would realize that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And let people really know you. I think that that's a big thing too. I was watching, there's a show, World's Toughest, about like the special forces and stuff like that. And this one girl was on it, Sean Johnson, an Olympian, and she's super strong mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And they pull her into the interrogation room and they say, like, listen, you're really great at all these challenges, but you come across like a robot. Like, how would anybody on your battalion or any of your teammates or your people in the military, how would they even help you? Because they don't know you. You don't let yourself be known. And that's a huge thing, right? In my childhood, a lot of it was like, good, better, best. Never let it rest until the good is better and the better is best. It was always like, keep it moving, like seconds first loser, right? And so it was like showing no weakness ever, right? And so getting emotional was weak, and crying was, what are you crying about? And a lot of that, right? So it's showing our emotion and like letting people know us and be seen. It's like, that's super vulnerable. It's like, you want to show me who you are first, and then I can decide if I want to show who I am.
Yeah. Oh, I thought Randy was saying
I
something.
was trying to find that mute button.
Oh.
It disappeared off my screen, man. We have another Rob. There's many Robs in the jiu-jitsu community. But there's a Rob Priester that trains at the gym I train at. And, he's one of these guys. He's got a unique personality and kind of an eccentric individual, but I will give him something. He is one of the best at noticing if people are off in the community.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you talked about, knowing yourself, allowing other people to know you as well, and how
Right.
that can benefit the entire community that you train with is so important. So I agree with you. I don't like the whole just constantly crush people and constantly try to win every role. And I think all these concepts we're talking about are kind of interconnected, because if you have a strong community and people recognize that maybe it's not your best day, but you need to be there,
Mm-hmm.
their ability to kind of dial in on that. Whether that means, like you said earlier, giving you a little bit of space in a bad position because they recognize, like, hey, this is about
Right.
more than just this role.
Right.
Or Rob, Rob Priester, who many times over the years has literally come up to me, pulled me aside, and been like, "Hey, you good? I can just tell something's a little off. You all right?"
Yeah.
And even if whether I want to talk about it or not, every time he's done that, he's been right. And so I think there's a lot of power in that community, like you guys are talking about, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether we want to talk about it or not, exactly. Right. We don't necessarily have to talk about it. It's like, no, but I will be, right? Are you okay? No, but I will be. Right. It's like I'm hanging in there, I like to say, right? And jujitsu's seen me through my mom dying, my dog dying, my divorce, right? It's like it's seen me through many transitions in my life. And no worse for wear, right? Like always just like come through and train and do what I need to do and all those sorts of things. And one other piece I wanted to say too, you said something that jarred this in my brain. Training jujitsu and training jujitsu just for training jujitsu, not for like the stripe, not for the notoriety, right? Doing the right thing for the right reason, right? Like the journey is the destination sort of thinking. And I find for me, I remember my sponsor said this to me because I was, in my resentments about like, I'm not getting promoted and all the things, right? And she said to me, she's like, what if you did your best jujitsu when your instructor wasn't looking? Your goal was to do your best jujitsu when your instructor wasn't looking. And I was like, blew my mind. And so, because every time I would have a great roll, he wouldn't see. And then I'd do one thing, Joe, come on, Joe. And I'd be like, oh, come on. I'd want to prove, I'd want to hustle. I'd want to be like, you just missed. And then brag, right? Which like, that doesn't look great. And you missed all the other, never mind, right? Like, then you can't, because they don't embarrass your training partner about like the role that you just had, right? So I'm like, on to live another day. But the allowing my shift in my mindset. And so whenever that happened, I was like, great. He didn't see any of the great things I did. That was my goal, was to do all my best training when he wasn't looking. And it shifted something in me for sure.
So that's kind of an interesting concept, honestly, because I mean, it's like even still, like my coach called me out on it. Not that it was a bad thing. I was just telling him, like, I was pretty stressed. Like every time I come up, because he lives in Australia, so it's a trip for either of us to train together. And so I tell him, like, I'm trying to show up here to give you like 100% Rob. I'm here to show you like what your black belt has become. Like that. Like I want to give him a good role. I want to give him a good showing. And the last time it was interesting. The last time that I was there, I actually had like rib dislocated. Was it the intercostals or whatever? Like were dislocated. So
Oh,
I was
yeah,
basically just like
yeah.
laying on my side, praying for somebody just to run up and kick me in the back to try to get him back in. But there was they got him back in at the gym. So I'm like that. I was disappointed because I wasn't able to give my performance to my coach so he could see and get my pat on the back that we talk about, get the recognition.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you're not supposed to be 100% all the time. But like
Mm,
the
mhm.
what you said about doing your best jujitsu when they're not looking is kind of like an
Yeah.
interesting concept too, of
Yeah.
like, because when you were saying that, I was thinking it was like now he gets to see all the things I'm screwing up on and he
Yep.
can help me fix it versus
Mhm.
like you just let me run the course like, oh yeah, Rob's cross collar choke's fine. And then he sees me like doesn't see me getting like cockroached in a mount or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and jujitsu is for us, right? So if I'm saying that my best work is going to be when I'm watching, it's like because it's for me, right? It's not because I want to get the stripe. It's not because I want to get the attaboy, right? Obviously, it's great when your instructor sees you doing well, but I was just having such a hard time with that it was like I just need to switch the focus. That like this is just for me, and that's another mental piece. It's like using your tools, using your sponsor, whoever you have in your life, using your therapist, right? To say something I'm doing is not working. I'm going to jujitsu, and every time I'm there, I'm frustrated, and every time I'm there, I'm leaving angry. This something's not working, right? It's like one of the things that I say to my clients is like at the core of alcoholic thinking is the insane belief that self-destructive behavior is going to lead to serenity and peace of mind, right? So I'm going to go there and be in a bad mood, and I'm going to beat up everybody, and I'm going to lose, and then I'm going to go and be even worse mood, and I'm not going to change anything for months. Let me just keep doing that over and over and over and over until I say, all right, something isn't working here. I need to change my thought process. I need to change the goal of my roles. If I get the second, third, or fourth submission attempt, then I'm doing well. If I'm rolling with a higher belt, that's another thing I said in the workshop too, right? If I'm a purple belt and I'm rolling with a black belt and they didn't get their first submission, they didn't even get their second submission, and I lasted 3 minutes into the roll and they didn't submit me. Pretty good.
yeah,
Right?
I'm
I
sorry. Go
think
ahead, Red.
I think it connects pretty well with the idea of the imposter syndrome as well. So if you're in that instructor role or like in your personal life, right now I'm still relatively new as a patrol sergeant, and that imposter syndrome tends to creep in when you get that new promotion, and you're the new man or woman on the totem pole in that rank, because you feel like everybody's looking at you, and you like almost feel like, even though you would never say it out loud, that you need to have all the answers, all the solutions, you need to be the best in the room, and you
Mm-hmm.
put that pressure on yourself, and then all it does is make everything worse, because then your decision making process falls apart because you're thinking about the wrong things and you're looking in the wrong locations for the right information that would make you more effective. And it's the reality of it is, whether you're a newly promoted patrol sergeant with 10 people under you, or if you're a black belt newly promoted or brown belt newly promoted on the mats and you're coaching a class, the reality is nobody expects you to have all the answers. Nobody expects you to be a world beater. And that's the hardest part, is
Mm-hmm.
accepting that truth. And in fact, I feel like I've found that I've earned more respect from my people in being vulnerable and not being afraid to
Mm-hmm.
show them that I get beat on the mat, or on the road, that I got to call somebody else to find an answer, or even
Mm-hmm.
have one of my people that I supervise give the answer, because maybe they have experience I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It sounds cliche because people say it all the time, but it is 100% true, at least to this point in my experience as a black belt instructor and as a supervisor in law enforcement, that being genuine and being vulnerable actually increases the amount of respect and admiration you get from the people that are, um, I hate saying under you, because it's not even how it is. If you really look at it from the right standpoint, we're all on the same plane. It's just that we have different jobs and responsibilities. But the people that you're in charge of helping or raise up, they gain respect for you with that vulnerability, in my opinion.
Yeah, I always say that nobody likes to know it all, right? And here we are, like, I have to know everything all the time, right? I remember one of my first sessions with my therapist, I was like, I have to know everything all the time. And she looks at me, she's like, Jill, she goes, I know some things some of the time. And that felt so, she's been a therapist for 30 years. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh, that's, you're allowed to not, again, part of my childhood, have to know everything all the time, right? And part of it is, I mean, again, there's just so multifaceted, right? As a therapist, right? I'm supposed to know everything. People come in like, well, you're the therapist, you don't know, how come you don't know, right? Or if I'm in the world, right, and I say I have anxiety about something, people are like, aren't you a therapist, right? It's like the shame of like, not supposed to have, mechanics don't bring their car to the car shop, right? PTs don't ever hurt themselves, right? So therapists aren't ever supposed to have a feeling or thought because I'm a therapist, I'm supposed to know everything. And so the asking questions, right? So back to the know-it-all, right? it's so beautiful when you say to somebody, and even myself included, right? When it's like, I never thought of that. That's a good question. I'll have to look that up. Or, I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, let me see if I can figure that out or find some research. And it gives other people permission to do that too. It's such a relief that you didn't know everything all the time, right? Because here I am thinking that everyone wants to see me as somebody who knows things all the time, and like this highfalutin person who's just perfect in every way, and that is the least that people want to see. When I do that, people are like, "Oh, that's therapist Jill." They know. They know I'm like grandstanding, right? Even my sponsor's like, "Are you going to ever like drop into your heart? Like you throw up the word screen, like, oh, I know all the answers, like nothing to see here, mirage." Right? As opposed to like, it's okay to not know things.
And that's something I feel like everybody struggles with, like you said. I can't, claim everybody else's thoughts, but yeah, the not knowing stuff or having to feel like you need to know everything is definitely a something I've experienced, and I know other people as well, because it's always like I say this, like I don't listen to my own advice sometimes, and it's just like self-destructive in a way. I don't know, but that's kind of what I was thinking about. Is like, yeah, I tell people that all the time, and then I'm like, I need to know this right now, because why don't I know this? I'm a black belt. Like it's gotten better. Trust me, it's gotten better like ever since.
Yes.
But
Right.
but I do want to wrap it up, unfortunately. So we have to give our listeners a little bit more to look forward to from you next time we have you on. So. But
Yes.
Jill, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Like this has been really insightful, really helpful, and I hope that our listeners got something out of it as well. For it. And before we go, can you tell people where they can find you if you want to promote your Instagram or any social media like that? Just go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, Jill Jitsu on Instagram is probably the best place to find me. Jill_Jitsu. You could send me a message, or any sort of contact would be totally fine in that way. Yeah, and I really had a great time here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all of your guys' insights and being so welcoming.
I think it's been a phenomenal episode. I think there's gonna be a lot of takeaways for a lot of people, especially if they're willing to really go into some of these things and work on them. And one thing, when we bring you back, I'd love to go into something I'm sure a lot of people want to know about, which is how to get better at dealing with competition anxiety, whether it means
Mm,
going into their first competition, returning to competition after a long layoff, or after injury, stuff like that. I think that'd be a phenomenal topic
mhm.
to delve into in the future. But definitely appreciate your time. I know I got a lot out of it, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Anytime. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of the Big Jiu Jitsu Show. I'm Rob,
I'm Randy.
and we'll catch you guys next time.